In this video, I'm going to react to a triathlon YouTube channel's kettlebell tutorial. And you know, whenever somebody talks about kettlebells, your brother Gregory is up in arms. And if you find other pieces of content that you want my reaction to, make sure you reach out via Instagram. You find it right here at your screens, or you write it in the comment, and I'm gonna check it out most definitely. Now in this video, we have a couple of exercises where they say, hey, it might help your running. My realization after maybe 50% of the video is a little bit different. It's just regular GPP exercises, but I'm going to explain more later in the video. This is where specialization comes in. And it makes sense to have maybe different coaches, right? We have a coach who takes care of your running, and then you have a coach who takes care of your strength training, and maybe a specialist who can help you improve your kettlebells. And that's what I'm here for. And if you're over 40 and you want to become strong, fit, and lean without going to the gym twice as fast, download my free ebook in the first link in the description. Grüezi miteinander, Gregory von Lebe Stark here. Let's waste no time and jump right into the reaction.
The stronger you are, the better a runner you will be. However, when time is limited, it is tempting to focus purely on the running.
Now, let's jump into two different scenarios that I think might be interesting to you if you are a runner and you want to include strength training into your regular routine. And she talks about kettlebells, which I think is awesome, and it's a great tool. Yet there's one important distinction. If you're just running for fun and you want to improve your running, or you think, hey, I already got my endurance taken care of and now I need to bring up my strength levels, then you can pretty much do anything. Some swings, some squats, some presses. You generally build up your GPP, your general physical preparedness or performance, which then translates into your running to a certain extent. This is fine. And this is great. However, if you are an elite runner, things are a little bit different. Because just because you do strength training, this doesn't really mean that this will automatically enhance your results. In elite athletes, sequential training might make sense, where you do different forms of periodization. And essentially, this means that you, for example, do a strength training block, then you do an endurance block, and then you try to focus on your SPP, where you really want to get good at, and then see if you're able to translate or transmute the effects from your previous work, from the GPP and from the strength training that you've done, into your sport. Because sometimes the joint actions are not the same. So, and I want to quote from the book that I'm reading from Zatsiorsky. He says, much time and effort are needed to fuse all the partial improvements into an athlete's preparedness for high-level competition, which means just because your strength levels have improved doesn't mean that your athletic results will improve. This requires a little bit more analysis, great programming, and this is where strength training becomes a little bit complex and difficult. It's not that easy. So please make this distinction. Are you a high-level athlete? Then things look a little bit different. Are you just a regular runner and you want to bring your races up, or you bring your levels up to a certain extent and want to include strength training also for some other benefits, then go ahead and include kettlebells, most definitely.
Now, I could go into all the reasons that kettlebells are a great piece of kit and why everyone should have at least one of these.
So let's check out her form. She does a squat swing variant, and the kettlebell, again, is way too light. Even if you demonstrate it and you're losing light weight, you can still demonstrate it properly. Now, what she does is what many people do, and this is the typical beginner's mistake, is that squat swing variation. So as you can see, she drops fairly low, so she bends the knees so the hips don't do as much. Now, there's two versions of the swing that I want you to understand. First of all, if you do that proper deadlift swing variant with more high tension, a little bit more explosive, and we can call this the dynamic repeated effort, then you are hinging. You don't bend the knees. If you bend the knees, it's not wrong if you do it intentionally, but many people do it like this because they're not used to working with the hips only. Then we have a pendulum mechanic, and with the pendulum mechanic, the upper body doesn't lean forward that much, and the leaning forward of the upper body is called the amplitude, which might be different depending on your anthropometrics and how you swing. It's not much of an issue, but the pendulum allows you to understand the swing most definitely, and clean and a snatch. So understand these two differences. On the one hand, we have the swing, that typical deadlift variation, and then we have the pendulum swing.
So stand with your feet just wider than hip width apart, having softened.
And oh my God, these shoes. Never wear these running shoes to train. It's a completely different beast, strength training and endurance training, or jogging from that perspective, because you can kind of mold these two together, and then you get this hybrid endurance or strength endurance, which is very taxing on the body. And this is what kettlebells actually are. And that's why we always say the kettlebell is the king of GPP. It's the tide that lifts all boats of physical qualities. And if you wear these shoes, these on-cloud shoes, or these shoes with these thick soles, you actually put a mediator between your feet and the floor. And then you cannot fully express the strength that your body has, because your body needs full contact with the floor, especially your feet. This is called proprioception, in order for you to express strength to its fullest degree. So either go barefoot or wear minimalist shoes.
And just in case if you're wondering what kind of kettlebell I'm using, it's the Pro Kettlebell by my friend Nikolai Puchlov, proudly made in the USA. Check the link in the description to get your Pro Kettlebell right now. And don't forget to use our code LEBE to get 10% off your next purchase.
Picture your arms as rope. They're attached to the kettlebell, but will only be holding the weight, not driving any of the movement.
And you don't
and
do
as
this. You don't stand up and then you start swinging. You swing the kettlebell from that hinge-ready position between your legs, and then you start immediately. My sensei, Steve Carter, rest in peace, always told me, if you start like this, you're wasting your first rep.
Now, the key points to focus on.
And watch this major point. The kettlebell drops, and look. She's already hinging, and the arms are not yet connected to the body. When you work with the ballistics of kettlebells, always think about this. Your upper body is always battling or going against the kettlebell. So when the kettlebell drops between your legs, you wait. This is what we call timing. You wait for the arms to connect with the body, and then you hinge. If you do what she does, she doesn't wait. She hinges already. Then, you see, the legs are already in a bent position and the arm have not contact with the body yet. And this is what we always say, it's that good expression. You're closing the barn door and the hose is already bolted. It's useless. So wait, timing, reconnect with the body, then hinge, and then you can make sure that your hips take the brunt of the weight, and you'll feel this when you work with heavier weights. You don't want your lower back to carry it, you want your hips to carry it.
On our driving from the hips, it needs to be quite a fast and strong movement, your glutes really getting activated.
Exactly. It is a posterior chain focused exercise with the biggest muscles that you have. The hamstrings, the glutes, the lower back, they're all fused together to express strength to move that weight. And if you don't do it properly, you're not able to transfer that energy into your arms, which are an extension of the kettlebell.
Make sure that your eyes are looking forwards just to keep everything in line. And when it comes to the height that the kettlebell comes up...
No, it doesn't. You don't have to always gaze forward. You look towards the horizon when you're in that upright position, the top swing, and when the kettlebell drops back down, you can lower your gaze. That's totally fine.
This is another compound movement, one that gets several joints moving and therefore several muscle groups engaged. It's basically a version of the classic squat, just with the weight held in front of you.
Yeah, it's a version of the classic front squat when you have the weight in front of you.
Holding the kettlebell upside down, close to your chest, feet just wider than hips, your eyes are facing forwards.
Make sure you take off these shoes.
Squat down as far as you can whilst keeping good form. Now focus on your lower back here. If you start to feel that round, you've gone too far. And from that point, or just before...
Were you going too far? I don't understand what you mean, but here's the key. A squat depends on your hip mechanics or on your anthropometrics. Here's what we've seen. Some people are not able to go into a deep squat because their hips do not allow them to. They're just limited, not because of a muscle that has some brakes on it or muscle that are tight, but the hips simply do not allow it. So what you want to try in a squat is what we always say, it's 4 parts that you want to focus on. First of all, chest up, then hips back, knees out, and then you squat down. Make sure your knees track the toes and you squat as deep as you can. If your lower back or your glutes, your hips, your pelvis rounds a little bit at the bottom, it doesn't really matter. So you want to go as deep as you can, and then we have a proper and solid front squat or goblet squat. And with the goblet squat, you can also hold the kettlebell on the handle and squat as deep as you can, and then you can adjust the weight a little bit to sit into the exercise, into the squat, which is a great way to improve your depth. But also keep in mind that sometimes you are not able to go any deeper because your hips are just restricted.
A rose. Start off in a squat position and then bend over the kettlebell, hold it with one hand. Trying to keep your back as still as possible. Lift the kettlebell and pull it upwards towards you, bringing your elbow back behind you before lowering back down towards the ground. Now, there are small variations you can do, so play around with what works.
She has the back a little bit too arched, so the way we do the row is your upper body leans forward because you want to focus on your big back muscle. Your hamstrings, your glutes, as well as your back, your lower back has to work in a static motion or manner to keep your body stable. Your upper body leans forward, very strong amplitude, and then one arm rests on the quad, and then the other arm, with the other arm you roll the kettlebell close to the body. And here's what we always focus on. We make sure that the handle points towards the stomach, the elbow is close to the body, and you want to visualize that you want to pull the kettlebell through your body.
Well, be familiar with it, but we're going to presume that you've only got one kettlebell, or at least one kettlebell of each weight. So we're going to do a single arm farmer's walk.
And this is what we normally refer to as the suitcase walk.
Now, the key for this is your starting position. So you're going to hold your kettlebell in one hand with your arms straight, just relaxed by your side, ideally in front of a mirror, and you want to check that your posture is nice and level. So your shoulders are level and your shoulders are set back and upright. And then...
Doesn't have to be like this. And lots of what we're explaining happening, I get it, it's a YouTube video, it's a tutorial. And if you really want to do a masterclass, you explain everything in detail. I did this in the beginning. I explained way too much until I understood, you know, the basics are enough. And with the posture of the farmer's walk, it doesn't really matter. Even if you go into a hunchback position to a certain extent, if you have heavy weights and you carry them for a long time, this just happens, and that's fine. You don't break apart. If it doesn't hurt, just keep moving. And the farmer's walk is a powerful exercise. And now here's a great realization that I'm having as I'm watching these exercises is this is just GPP stuff. And this is GPP, so general physical preparedness or performance exercises that you can do for any sport. A farmer's walk, a bent over row, a swing, that's great to improve your GPP, but it's not highly focused on running.
Now, if you have been following these exercises as long as you've been watching this video, you will be aware that your core has already been activated.
Most
but
definitely.
This exercise is going to take it to the next level.
And it's absolutely not necessary. If you do a solid swing, you're good. I would include specific core exercises with cleans and snatch, and even press, and the one-sided exercises, the unilateral exercises, where you have the kettlebell close to the body and then work with one side. And this improves your rotational strength most definitely. Way better than this exercise. It's just not necessary. I would do jerks, snatch, clean, powerful exercises that require your body to stabilize itself. And if you do a snatch, you improve your rotational strength to the utmost degree and almost train every single muscle fiber in your body. This is time well better spent than a Russian twist. So here's the next thing that you have to do. Clean and press that like and subscribe button. Share with a friend who's also interested in kettlebells. And if you made it this far, download my free ebook in the first link in the description called the Kettlebell Code. If you're over 40, 50, or 60, you don't have a lot of time, but you still want to take care of your fitness, this is where the kettlebell comes in, and I'm going to show you how to get started with my ebook. So download it right now in the first link in the description or in the pinned comment.